Thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar. Thank you for spending your Thursday evening or your afternoon with us. The session will focus on the topic of how to recruit, manage and retain top talents, which is a key topic that lots of companies are looking at the moment. And today we have two great presenters to share insights and wisdom with us. But before we begin, let me just introduce myself and Sleek. So my name is Daniel Spencer and I'm the Head of Business Development and Partnerships at Sleek in Singapore. We are a digital corpsec that's growing very quickly in Singapore. We provide incorporation and the management of all accounting, regulatory and tax compliance for a Singapore entity, including things such as nominee director, local address, visas and immigration support. And it's all done digitally through one platform. So with the ongoing COVID situation in both Singapore and Hong Kong, one thing has not stopped for companies, and that is recruitment. With speakers, we've got many companies around the region here that are recruiting like crazy, particularly in certain industries, and others that are laying off staff. So today we've got two presenters who are going to share with us what they're seeing from the ground. And the companies that are here today are Wantedly, represented by Andrew Tan, and Gordon from Talenox. So two different types of solutions within the ecosystem of HR. So what we might do to begin is I might hand over to you, Andrew, just to introduce yourself Wantedly and to share with us about your story.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Very privileged to be here today with two very outstanding startups and to discuss this global conversation, right? Perhaps from a different perspective where we are coming from, the employer, but it's still about jobs, and jobs. Before that, let me introduce quickly. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the champions for Wantedly's mission here in Singapore. Now, what is our mission? Our mission is to create a world where work drives passion. So I mentioned that I'm championing Wantedly here in Singapore. Reason because we are originally founded in Tokyo, and that's where our HQ is. Our founder and CEO, Akiko Naka, she built Wantedly as a technology company to help you discover jobs that will ignite your passion. Our flagship product, which is called Wantedly Visit, is a social recruitment platform where people and companies, they meet based on passion and values rather than salary and benefits. So Wantedly has been in Singapore since 2017. We are relentless in our mission and focus on raising awareness about first, social hiring, a new way to hire, and also employer branding, how to attract the right talent. So quick shout out, you can check out our website, sg.wantedly.com, or download the Wantedly Visit app. Now, our platform provides opportunities for talents to discover their dream companies. At the same time, it allows companies to showcase their brand story and, as I mentioned, attract the right talent. Quick shout out to my counterpart in Hong Kong as well. Besides Japan and Singapore, we're also in Hong Kong. Just like you guys, Sleek and Telenox. And quick overview of Wantedly, we have over 2 million users and over 35,000 companies globally.
Yeah, great, Andrew. Thanks for sharing that. And I think the notion of social recruitment is very interesting, which goes away from the traditional model of recruitment. So thanks for sharing. And Gordon, over to you. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, just a very quick introduction of us. I'm Gordon, CEO of Talenox. So in short, Telenox is a platform that helps you with HR compliance, mainly in payroll and leave. We are currently in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Malaysia. So for each of the countries, we actually localize to the payroll logic, the tax logic, and also the labor laws for each country. And mainly helping SMEs to, and also our partners like Sleek to make the whole process really, really easy. And for us, we started off 6 years ago. Till now, we are serving around 3,000 over SMEs in these 3 countries. And even up to today, we're still doing our best to further improve our platform. And ongoing, we are looking at targeting different parts of different countries in the region. And hopefully, we can help more and more SMEs in the region. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we've kind of heard the background of the two speakers today. So today we're going to delve into some questions in the HR ecosystem. But at any point, I can see that there's a lot of people that joined the discussion. So at any point, if you have a question you would like to ask to Andrew or Gordon, feel free to use the chat, which you can access at the bottom of your screen. And we'll try and answer some of those questions, but I have some of my own to run by the panelists. So I might start with you first, Gordon. And you've shared that you've been around for about 6 years. You've launched into different countries. But the HR industry is very competitive. There's a lot of solutions for HR. What would you say makes Talenox different from other providers out there that particularly have similar platforms to what you've built over the last 6 years?
So just to give everybody a rough idea of how many competitors we have just in Singapore, we have around 100 over, if you look at the list of vendors in IRAS, there are like 100 over companies that are doing payroll. Yeah, so that tells you like how competitive this market is, which is also good. That means there's a market validation. But in terms of like HR SaaS platform, I would say like serious players, there are around like less than 5 of them. And for us, very different from our other peers in the industry, we are very focused on HR compliance. So if you look at how we grow up to today, we are still very focused on building payroll and leave. We didn't venture into other parts like claims, time tracking, scheduler, and so on. The reason so is because based on just HR compliance like payroll and leave, the amount of details needed, the amount of depth needed, it really requires a lot of engineering effort, and it really requires a lot of experience in the market. Yeah, so our focus is just to ensure that we can grow in the region to be the main guy who is very good at HR compliance. And to date, we open our API so that other companies in the workforce management space like time tracking and scheduling platform, they can actually integrate with us, such as Staff Any in Singapore. We also integrated with Deputy in Australia, one of the leading platforms that are used by like McDonald's, NASA, Amazon, and so on. And King of Time, which is a leading platform from Japan. I believe the guys from Monthly will know about them also. And for accounting, it's actually one of our first integration. We actually integrated with Xero, that was around 5 years ago. And I think recently we were actually being labeled as like Xero Staff Picks. Yeah, so we are one of the ecosystem partner that is being chosen in Asia as kind of like an elevated kind of partner. And we also integrated with QuickBooks Online. And with this API, we start to see more and more HR tech and also fintech companies who are interested in integrating us. We also get like human capital management system like Strong, who are also integrated with us. Yeah, and upcoming there's another new workforce management system called Robler. Yeah, so the way we target the market is very different. We rather be the one doing the heavy lifting in each country to localize and work with partners than to try to build a full suite of solutions and end up that we have the breadth but don't have the depth. Yeah, so everything will be half-baked. Yeah. So that's the main difference between us and our peers.
You're competitive. You've kind of followed the different strategy to what a lot of companies do, which is become the jack of all trades and the masters of none. You've decided to focus on what you're good at, your core focus, and work with partners to help you to build the solution using that API, which is so powerful. Yeah, that's great.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think what we are well known for, based on the reviews that I've read, is that we do our best in our support to help our users along, because support is very important, especially for payroll. It's very time sensitive, so a very good support will go a long way. And I think since then they've been growing quite a bit of word of mouth, through word of mouth. Yeah, and of course investing continuously in the product. I think that's really important. Yeah, not just doing just sales, but also understanding that product is the most important. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important. And what about you, Andrew? Competitors, how do you differentiate yourself when someone calls your company and says, hey, he's cheaper, or he's got a better product, he says? What do you say? What do you say to that?
Price is always a topic, right? But the most standard comparisons will be versus traditional job platform. And let me talk about the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? We know that at the bottom level, the basic need, companies need to fill an open position, usually very urgently. And then on the other side, job seekers, they need to get a job. What that usually results in is a spray and pray approach. Whether you are employer or job seeker today in the audience, you will understand this. You go to a job platform, you filter by salary, say $3,000. There are 20 results, you apply for them all. In the event one or two companies, they get back to you, get back to your application, sometimes you think, hey, did I apply for this company? This is what I mean by the spray and pray approach. And it's a means to an end, right? Traditional job platforms deliver volume, although there's some noise. But with Wantedly, we want to provide real value. We want to change the behavior so that job searching is more deliberate and it's more beneficial at the end of the day for the companies and for the talents. Now, how do we do that? A job posting on Wantedly starts with why, starts with the company, starts with its employer brand, and this why is basically the mission, right? And then we go on to the what, so products and services, and then the how, who's in the team, the culture, the values, strategy, etc. After all of this, then we come to the job description. So there's a differentiation between job description and job posting. Job posting should always start with why. And this way, applicants on Wantedly, when they apply, right, they would have already done their research and homework about this company. They will feel connected, they will feel excited about the mission and vision, and then they apply for the role. Oh, by the way, we also don't publish salary information. So this may, spark some questions, but I have no doubt salary information is important. It can come in the first discussion, in the first interview, whichever stage, but it should never be the motivation. And that's what the current behavior is. In a spray and pray approach, it's the motivation. You search and sort by and filter by salary, and then you apply what's available. So it shouldn't be the starting point in a job search. At the end of the day, I talk about, traditionally it's all about the basic needs in the Maslow hierarchy. Our platform provides opportunities now for talents to discover their dream companies. And that way we can elevate them. It's not just about finding a job, but it's about finding a career you can be passionate about. And likewise for companies, we want to elevate them. It's not just about filling a position, oftentimes reactively. It's about finding the right fit for your company. And that's what we want to achieve.
It's a very countercultural message to the traditional industry of the spray and pray and look for the job with the highest salary, the best packages. Imagine working for a company that you're actually passionate about and you're interested in as the first choice when you look for your new opportunity. Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. But on to kind of the situation we're all in. I'm at home. Andrew is in a virtual version of his office. Gordon is next to a banner of Talenox. We're all in situations maybe we wouldn't have been a few months ago, almost 6 months ago. So COVID is the elephant in the room. And I'm interested to know for both of you, particularly within the industry of HR, which has been disrupted so much because people are losing jobs, people are being made redundant, people are changing jobs. How important is the digitization of the HR industry, particularly for companies or small businesses that can't now conduct interviews face-to-face? They can't pay their staff with a piece of paper by giving them the payslip in an envelope once a month. So Gordon, what have you seen as kind of the key things for this affecting your business or your customers that they've been sharing with you?
So coming from a HR and payroll perspective rather than recruitment, we do see companies that are more old school, where they have been using desktop solutions or Excel sheet, understanding that, okay, now is the circuit breaker period in Singapore, then in Hong Kong, there were ongoing of the protests and now COVID situation, that they feel that, okay, remote working is pretty important. We need to have a way that we can kind of process payroll, publish payslip online, allow leave applications online. And from there, we actually see an increase in adoption. Interestingly, I'm not too sure whether there's any attendees from Malaysia. The Ministry of HR, they actually gave 1 or 2 days period for payroll and HR specialists to go back to the office to process payroll, just for the purpose during the MCO period. So that was very interesting. Yeah, if there is really a freemium platform like Telenox online, why do you actually have to do that? Yeah, and I think companies are getting more and more educated. In the past, nobody knows about Zoom. I would say very, very few, not saying nobody knows about Zoom. Most companies are very reluctant to actually make you online to go through demo. Nowadays, it become a norm. It just happened in less than a few months. So the great thing about COVID is that it actually speed up technology adoption for companies, usually slower than individuals, by around, I would say, 3 to 5 years at least. Yeah, so that's a great thing, and you can see that countries like Hong Kong and Singapore pushing very hard. In Singapore, you can see all the help packages are all focused on digitizing your business. in Hong Kong, HKPC, they're also doing their best with DBs. Yeah, so we're just doing our best to help as many clients as possible in this area. In terms of hiring, even for us, we've been doing it online, but if needed, after like the lockdown period, usually we'll do our best to at least meet our teammate, our upcoming teammate once, to ensure that it's really a culture fit, because there are limitations to I'll say online interviews in terms of like body language and so on, that is not as obvious as when you interview in person. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And so just on that point, Andrew, for recruitment, Gordon's been looking for new colleagues. Your team, I believe you have 200 spread across the world. But just in terms of your base and the way that you structure your model, because you have people looking for jobs and you have companies. And have you seen a trend because of COVID, the number of people looking for jobs increase in terms of your membership compared to the number of companies that are maybe using your solution? And maybe that's the first point, but the second point is, how do these companies find good talent? Because there's a huge volume or oversupply of talent right now. How do you find the best talent for your company in a time like this?
Definitely. So I agree with what Gordon said. And I'll add on to that. Besides digital transformation taking place at a speed never seen before, I think we also observe and hear and learn that HR has become the most important function in corporations during this time, during COVID, the whole spectrum, right? And I want to do a quick highlight about our COVID-19 response. This is to your part one of the question. Job seekers have increased and user activity has also increased. So these are two numbers we see, right? One is more users joining the platform. The other one is previously inactive users, they're coming back. So this suggests some job search activity. And our response to this has been I think it's in the chat, if you guys can see, we have launched a hiring freeze tracker in both Singapore and Hong Kong. In this time, we believe that we need to serve the community first to fulfill our mission. And we have gathered a list of companies that are still hiring. Of course, some of them have laid off people, retrenchment exercise, no pay leave, etc. We gather that information as well. But what's important about this sheet is it's community driven, community support, and it provides information, access to information in a time where a lot of job seekers, they are left stranded, right? They apply to a company because that job posting is still live, but they actually don't know that this company is suffering. There's turmoil inside because of COVID. So the company is actually frozen headcount. So they are waiting in vain for the company to respond to their application when they could probably have another search elsewhere. So by compiling this list, in Singapore now, there's over 800 companies, I think. We can give this information. We try to verify as much as possible, but we can give this information to the job seekers so that they know, hey, okay, actually this company that I applied to, they've already frozen headcount. Let me move on. So that's a little part that we are doing. Now, about finding talent and keeping talent in the COVID world, it's great. It's good news that these companies are still hiring. And in fact, if you look at a hiring freeze tracker, you will see majority of the companies are hiring more than those that are laying off people. So the short answer to the audience is, if you want to find talent, come to 130, because we have 70,000 each in our database in both Hong Kong and Singapore, and over 2 million globally. But that aside, getting started on communicating your employer brand, this is essential. You may be the best employer out there, but if people don't know that, it can't help you attract talent. Employer branding allows companies to engage talents early, even before they join you. So maybe you are doing okay during COVID, but you're not, say, aggressively hiring. You should still engage these talents so that, when you're ready to pick up your hiring, you have that talent pipeline over there already. What this could translate into is, if you can build up fans and followers of your company, right? Either when your hiring becomes active again, or when this followers of your company, they become active job seekers as opposed to passive job seekers, they will want to join you. Furthermore, by sharing your employer value proposition, which means how you want to be perceived by the talents as an employer, you create and manage expectations also to help talents prepare for a life at your company. So this is about keeping the talents part. You know, if you do not set and manage expectations well, a talent joins you and on day one gets a negative shock, could be culture shock, could be a workload shock, so on and so forth. He or she will be thinking of leaving in just a few months. And that's why, you know, in the recent history, we had been seeing increasing behavior of job hopping, right? So to avoid that, to find talents and to keep talents, engage them early. Let them know what's the work environment like. Introduce your team members. After all, you spend 60 to 70% of your waking hours with these guys, right? They are basically your work family, your second family. And of course, I'm sure Gordon has gone through this. That's why he suggests culture fit is important. Take time to explain, you know, the values of your company. Take time to suggest the culture at your company. And also very happy to share, you know, one key part of this COVID situation that it has led to is remote hiring. So remote hiring also leads to remote onboarding, right? And Wantally, we use Telenox. So payroll, leave management, all of this, it has really been a breeze thanks to Telenox platform.
Yeah, fantastic. And that kind of leads into the next question then for Gordon is, you touched on it earlier about the like the digitization of HR practices within very maybe traditional firms. You talked about the Malaysia example. What would you say is the key challenges for companies to digitize? And also, like, you offer a freemium model of Talenox, so why would anyone not use you in terms of a solution just to make their own lives easier? But that's the freemium model. What is the paid model of your business look like? What are the perks that you get if you actually pay for a Talenox subscription?
I think just to answer the first question first, which is what are the challenges to digitize the HR processes? I think it's the same for digitizing any processes. First is the need for the right stakeholders, the right guys to lead the change, be it HR, be it CRM, or be it like internal business processes. If you want to automate as much as possible, to bring as many of the processes on board to the cloud, you definitely need champions in a team. So the problem is that if the team is very traditional and there's only like maybe there's just the management who want to champion it, it gets very difficult. So what we see is that for management teams who are really interested to make the switch, they will usually hire champions, and they will see how they can best help their own teammates who are very used to older way of doing things to kind of switch their platforms over. In the past, we even up to today, we do face a lot of friction from users who are more traditional, but it's always in our DNA to do our best to help them along. So I think we have been very patient with some users who are less tech savvy. And I think this also helps the champions or even help the users to switch over. So ongoing, we do our best to have like, if needed, we have demo sessions. So most of our users, you'll be surprised that we don't even see them. They just come about the Talenox and they start using it themselves. If there are any questions, they will ask us through our support channel. For those users who need a demo, we will arrange a demo for them. And ongoing, every month, we still have training sessions or webinars. We call it the HR Tech clinics to touch base with them. So we do our best to help bridge the gap from less tech-savvy users to tech-savvy users. And I think different governments are also doing their best in that sense. And it's also great to have partners like Sleek, like you guys, who are also on the ground helping clients with that. So I believe that a lot of clients also have that issue where they are very traditional based, they just switch everything over. So what they feel that is the fastest is just to outsource to you guys as the whole team gets to be more and more tech savvy before they grow to a certain size that they feel that insourcing makes sense. Yeah, so that is also another way of doing it. So to your next question, so sorry, what was that question again?
Yeah, the question was, so again, you just mentioned that people sign up on your website and you might not even talk to them. So there's no payment, but for what you're offering for companies is the digitization of payroll, is managing HR essentially. But what is then, how do you monetize that if you're offering a freemium version? What's the incentive for companies? What are the perks?
Okay, so the reason why we have a freemium version. So interestingly, Telenox started off with just paid version, just a premium version. So we don't have a free version at all. That was only until 2 to 3 years back that we started a free version. The reason why we started a free version was because since almost day one, we actually have review calculators for our users, like CPF calculator in Singapore, FWL for local levy calculations, salary calculations, and so on. Then we also built like NPF calculators for Hong Kong and Malaysia. We have like EPF calculators. Yeah, we realized that there's a very high uptake for those calculators, and if you actually do like a Google search, we are actually ranked either like first few or right after the statutory reports. And we're thinking like, okay, Telenox have grown to a size that we actually have quite a number of features. Why not we start to have a free version where we can strip away all the last mile features and help as many SMEs as possible. That's why we launched the free version, and we don't have to launch a free version that is half big. Yeah, so our free version is like unlimited headcount. It's actually pretty powerful. You can even like do your tax submission, and you will never see another company doing tax, allowing you to do tax submission of free version. Yeah, so how do we monetize? Is that we realize that companies, when they grow to a certain size, like headcount and above, they realize that it's very troublesome for them to key in the bank details of individual when they make a transfer. And also for CPF submission or even like NPF and so on. So for the last mile features where it's either direct integration to the banks, or you can download a bank file and upload to the bank's CPF file to upload to the CPF bot that make the user on the switch. Of course, we also have the Leave app, which only available on the free version. Sorry, on the paid version. And the integrations to all the SaaS platforms like accounting platforms like Xero, QuickBooks Online, to all the workforce management system and so on. So all the integrations, all the last mile features, and also Leave app is only available on the paid version, and usually companies of a certain size will require them.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's been a theme for both of you this evening, is that you're both looking to give back to the startup community. Andrew, you've shared, I can see in the chat, the list of freezers and hiring companies. That's something that you're doing to help people looking for a job. And Gordon, you've built an amazing product and you've given it away for free to help startups that maybe are digitizing for the first time and looking to get into this kind of digitized HR function within their company, but also maybe smaller businesses that at the very beginning don't have that ability to take this on. But as they scale, like you said, they grow with you. It's word of mouth, it's relationship building. Exactly. So again, both very generous ways of working. And again, it pays back, I'm sure, in terms of business and referrals. But just in terms of that, what you're doing there is you're providing a smooth experience for both companies and for candidates. So what would you say are some of the smart ways from what you've seen and just what you've shared there, are ways to make things smoother for candidates and also for hiring companies? Maybe Andrew, do you want to share any of your tips from what you've seen?
Yeah, I think it'll be useful to introduce a bit about what's behind Wantedly, our platform, and some of our features also, because we are talking about a smooth experience for attracting talent. We have a version of the ATS. It's called Wantedly Admin. And effectively, when a company is on Wantedly, we run on a SaaS model, and it's unlimited job postings and unlimited admin users. This is, when I referenced traditional job platforms earlier on, is quite different, because traditional job platforms, usually it's like a classifieds model. You buy ad credits, or you have, like a 1 week or 3 days period to post your job. So what we have set up, effectively, it allows for companies to have everyone in a team play a part in the recruitment process and not be dependent on the hiring cycle. Factor in employer branding, right? That's why we have gone for the SaaS model, where companies come on board Wantedly. They use this for the long term and consistently, because when you're not reliant on the hiring cycle. That means you build a talent pipeline. So your hiring is not reactive. And when you encounter crisis periods like these times that we are in, you will know that employer branding is not something you do when times are good. Then you shout about the good things that you're doing. Employer branding is something that you should do on an ongoing basis, even if you have had to meet certain hurdles. Let's say your company has to cut costs, and that means laying off some people. You want to show that you're still a good employer. And that's where you can use tools like Wantely platform to showcase that, to continue to engage your members, engage new talents, and build the talent pipeline.
Yeah, perfect. And Gordon, what would you say are some smart ways to provide a smooth experience for maybe not so more candidates, but also employees, because your solution is dealing with the employees and just managers who are managing payroll or HR managers within a company?
As in how to provide a smooth experience in that sense?
Yeah, in terms of maybe best practices from what you're seeing. Again, a lot of what your solution does is digitize things that are otherwise quite manual.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think how to word it. I would say there's like best practice and so on. So for us, in terms of payroll and leave, what we did was really to smoothen the whole process to ensure that by default, when you use Telenox, you are already compliant to the labor law in terms of like statutory leaves. So we kind of smoothen out that process in the sense that you don't have to worry about going through the whole setting by yourself to customize it for your own needs. You already know that, okay, I can really trust the platform. If I expand to Hong Kong, it's already set up. If I expand to Malaysia, it's already set up. So we do have companies where they started off in one country and they use Talenox for multiple countries, and that's how we gain trust from there. In terms of payroll, you know that, okay, as long as I tag it to the right immigration status, whether it is Singapore citizen, PR, or is it different work passes, my CPF and all the different statutory funds are already calculated accurately. There are certain countries that are a bit more complicated, like in Malaysia, where the tax is a withholding tax, where you need to calculate every month and you actually need to key in like accumulated deductions. Yeah, so for that, we do our best to kind of recommend ways and also to explain as much as possible within our platform. Yeah, so I would say that by default, when you're using Telenox, we are actually recommending the best practices that we have. Along the way, when you reach out to us to clarify some things and realize that whatever you're doing may not be the best practice, we will also advise from there. Yeah, but of course, if they have already outsourced it to our partners like Sleek and so on, we will rather let our partners be the one advising because we won't be in the right position as the outsourcing is actually done through our partners. Yeah. And I'd like to touch a bit on recruitment. Also, we are doing payroll and leave. Yeah, so I think for recruitment, it really depends on the company's culture. Different companies have different culture, different ways of hiring. We do see like F&B having like really a huge change. Before lockdown, there's like a lot of part-timers and so on. During lockdown, people were forced to take like no pay leave. People were the part-timers were being let go and stuff like that. And after the whole lockdown, everything spiked again. Yeah, so I think the tough part for companies that are like F&B and retail, where there's a lot of up and downs in terms of hiring due to the demand and supply, is that how can they communicate it very clearly to their employees during this period and let them understand that it's a very tough period for the affected industries and ensure that the morale are not badly affected, and what can they do best to help their employees along, because some of such employees, they actually leave by the day, or actually they need the pay to pay for their loans and so on. Yeah, so I think for affected industries, this is really very, very difficult. For industries that are a lot more flexible, where maybe like tech industry, where you have like remote working and so on, I think this is a very good time to actually revisit the hiring process, or to revisit like whether you want to encourage remote working. Yeah, of course, it's not something that can happen overnight. It boils down like what Andrew said, it boils down to your culture. It's an ongoing thing. You can't just do it during COVID. You can't just change during COVID. You got to ensure that this strategy forward is going to be a strategy that you really like.
Yeah, not just a reaction to the situation you find yourself in, preparation for situations like this. And just on that, maybe Andrew, for company morale, there's a lot of companies out there that are quite depressed. There's staff that have lost colleagues. There's people that are stuck at home with their dog and their themselves. I spoke to a startup, I think last week, who said that the only human interaction he had during the circuit breaker for 6 weeks was the local lady down at his 7-Eleven when he went down to buy his milk. And she didn't speak English, and he couldn't communicate with her, but they had a smile. So that was his human interaction. So in the age of COVID, how can companies be working to boost the morale of their employees? I see that you have like the Wantedly W on all your posts, which is quite fun. But what are you doing as a company to help boost the morale of your staff?
Yeah, so quite a few references to share in our own journey. I think one of the outstanding ones, and we were fortunate to be able to do so, is adding new faces to your team. When you have new members joining, this is regardless of, virtual or remote or physical, the immediate injection of fresh personality and ideas is, absolutely positive. Everyone gets excited. But, that's not something that every company, every team can do, on demand. So other things that you can definitely approach would be find ways to remain engaged with your work family. I keep mentioning this. You are now spending time apart. So definitely the heart grows fonder, right? So how do you spend time together? We know a lot of people play games. A lot of people have virtual water cooler sessions. So make sure that that is top of mind. You might have to be deliberate about that and just do it. Also, as a team leader or a manager, it's easy to check in on your team when you guys are together, right? Just looking at them, you will have an initial sense and initial gauge. But when you're working remotely, you need to make sure to feel their pulse, even more often, even more deliberately when you meet less regularly. Not everyone has gone back to the office after lockdown, so you need to do this. And I think cultivate a habit. Work is work, but cultivate the habit that when you start your one-on-one or when you start your team meetings, spend a few minutes. It could just be 1 minute, go around the group, catch up with everyone for a short bit, instead of just diving into the key agenda. For us, it has made a difference. And I think one final thing that I've learned myself as well is on the direction of growth and development. I think every worker, every member, when they join a company, there is always some hope, if not expectations, of developing as an individual. And if everything falls in the right place, that development can contribute back to the company, right? So if you're equipped to do so, spend time and energy on teaching, training, guiding, mentoring, coaching your people. And I think this is another way to uplift them. Above all, we are talking about HR, we're talking about talent management. Developing human capital is critical, And I go back to the point I mentioned, when this individual, when your member develops, it's good for the company too. So, you kill many birds with one stone.
Yeah, and what about for you, Gordon? What would you say are some smart ways to boost company morale? Andrew has, I think, 200 in the company, but your company's a lot smaller. It's a smaller family, but you've found some great talent. But you're all apart, so maybe together at some points. But how do you boost the morale of your team as the leader of your team?
I think for us it's a lot easier because our team is smaller, and Telenox long term we actually design our team to stay pretty lean. I think at most we are going to expand to like 30 to 40 or maybe 50 account. And for us we have two main communication channel. One is WhatsApp and one is Slack. And we keep it very clear. For WhatsApp is of course more for the fun stuff, and for Slack is for work. In terms of WhatsApp, we also have like different groups. We even have a gaming group where for the gamers, we really discuss about gaming, whether is it serious gaming like Dota and so on, or all the way to like more casual gaming like Brawl Stars and stuff like that. And ongoing, we also think of like different ideas on how to celebrate like birthdays. It's been, even at our size, it's actually very tough because every year you need to really think of like a different kind of ways to celebrate. We don't play a prank for our like customer support, our customer success team. We fake a new account to go in and actually ask them really difficult questions. We did crazy stuff here and there, but it was pretty fun. In terms of like aside from fun stuff, in terms of work, Slack has been really, really useful. I will encourage everybody to use Slack if possible. Yeah, and since we actually started to pay for it, yes, it's expensive, but since we started to pay for it, it really makes a difference. Yeah, we are really able to use like all the features. It's great to have a call immediately to settle certain like to discuss about certain things and so on. Slack has a very, very clear, I'll say in terms of coding, it's one of the clearest. Yeah, and screen share wise and so on, with pen feature and stuff like that. It really makes everything really easy for us to operate remotely. The other thing to think of is that I think for COVID, during the lockdown period, during CB, MCO, or for Hong Kong when they locked down, I think teammates tend to overwork. Yeah, because the first thing you do when you wake up, you put on a laptop, you start working. After that, you have a dinner, and sometimes you still continue to work. So I think it's very important to, as leaders or any of the leaders in the team, to constantly keep in check with your teammates. If you know that they're actually communicating with you at night, get them to take a rest, to have a work-life balance. I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. I'm just conscious of the time, so I'll ask you both one last question, and then we'll open the floor to the attendees to pose their own. So Andrew, what is one tip that you would like to share for recruiters and HR managers?
Okay, so I'll talk about traditional versus new again. Traditionally, recruitment success is defined by the placement of a hire. That's why, headhunters, they charge a success fee. But this has created a problem. I've mentioned some earlier. And other problems that companies face today, there's no consideration of employees flourishing, or little consideration. This equates to, if there's no employee success, how can there be company success? So the solution and the tip here is to always be on the lookout on how to achieve a right fit, a good match between talent and employer, good match of shared purpose, values, and expectations. So my tip would be to review your employer brand. That's definitely a good step to starting your employer branding strategy. And I'll add on one half point. It fits into all of this. Employers now, regardless of the situation you're in, we understand the learnings and best practices from COVID. It has plagued us long enough, right? So communication, transparency, goodwill where possible, right? But keep this in mind. And it ties back to your employer brand. In 1 or 2 years' time, when you recover, whenever that will be, and you start to hire again, the candidates that you meet in the future, they will almost certainly ask, how did you respond during COVID-19? So think about that, definitely.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what about for you, Gordon? What would be the one tip you would share for recruiters and HR managers?
Sorry, I was on mute. For us, our focus is always on attitude rather than just by skill set. Yeah, because it's very hard to train attitude. But if you have the right attitude and you're able to adapt really fast, the skill set, we are able to train that. Yeah, so for example, our head of marketing, when she joined Telenox, she knew nothing about SEO. So the whole SEO, the whole email marketing was built from scratch. And she learned everything from scratch. Yeah, so hire the right.
She had the right attitude.
Also, yeah, correct. And a team player, the right culture fit. I think that's the most important. Yeah.
I agree with that. And maybe I'll finish with my one tip. So we at Sleek as well, we I've hired a lot of people. When I joined Sleek last year in January, we were 40 staff, and now we're 130 staff. So we've grown exponentially. But what I've found, so I manage the business development team, and for every person that I've hired, we've looked at the Sleek values, which is simple, loyal, entrepreneurial, excellent, and kind. Credentials are great, experiences are great, but if you are not kind, if you can't be simple and explain very boring and complicated things in a simple way, if you can't be loyal to your customers and also to your colleagues when you say you're going to do something and follow up, everyone can improve processes and make things easier for each other. And that's what you guys are doing with your solutions. Being excellent, so not sending emails that are too long or just being lazy. And I think, and also just being kind. People want to work with people, like you said, Andrew. We spend 70% of our lives with these people in our offices. You want to have fun, just like Gordon mentioned, with people on WhatsApp or playing games. So I think that's a very big part of hiring the right candidates. And that's the hardest part, is finding those people. But I think if you have a gauge of your own culture, which you've both shared on, it makes things a little bit easier. So with that, I wanted to open up the floor to questions from participants. So you should be able to type a question in the chat if you have any.
There's a Q&A portion.
Okay, so we've got one from anonymous attendee. So given that the government has announced its intentions to resume office operations in the near future, what safety measures should HR enact post-COVID-19? Who would like to take this question?
Mine's a very short and easy answer, I would say. We are currently based out of WeWork in Singapore. And, you know, whatever bad press they have had, WeWork or co-working as an offering has been beneficial to us during this time, because they take care of all of this, all the safe office management, and they make it easier and quicker for us to resume office work, to go back with, you know, an ease of mind.
Did you want to add to that, Gordon, as well? Yeah.
So for us, our office is open. It's just that in terms of like the number of staff, we have reduced by 50% to be available in the office to ensure there's social distancing. Yeah, so I think as long as all the companies, they actually take the measures recommended by the government, they should be fine. And they should have, in Singapore, we have something called the safety management officer. Yeah, so we need to ensure that there's someone who is in charge of this. Yeah, I think as long as everybody is responsible, it should be fine. Yeah.
Fantastic. Second question, would HR prefer a candidate with higher expertise or a candidate who is a better cultural fit? Andrew.
Depends. Andrew.
Oh, mate, Gordon, you start us off.
I think it depends on the HR. Yeah, so it depends on MNC, it depends on SME, it depends on cultural fit and so on. Like for Telenox, it's definitely a cultural fit. For maybe you're talking about like a financial institution where it's a lot of the expertise, then I think there's going to be a lot of expertise. Yeah, so it really depends on the company.
My 2 cents worth, every HR is different, like Gordon mentioned. There are definitely HR that look specifically for expertise. And especially when, you know, you submit your resume through the system, you know, automatically you are disqualified if you don't meet certain criteria. But my recommendation and my preference or advice, if I may, is let's say, you know, average expertise, but perfect culture fit versus high expertise but no culture fit. I would definitely go for the former.
Yep. Another question, what lessons have you learned from the pandemic so far? It's quite a broad question, so it opens to your own interpretation of it. But Gordon, what have you learned since COVID?
So we have seen a lot of our clients who are really affected, and they're actually affected really badly. I think one great lesson is that everybody can help each other during the tough times. Like on our side, we are doing our best, whether is it in terms of like subscription fee, whether is it getting them like assistance in terms of like loans and so on, or linking them to the banks or government assistance. We do our best. And even on the ground, let's not talk about just on the enterprise or SME level. We do see a lot of people helping each other, which is really touching. Yeah, so I think pandemic really bring the best out of people, and that's really great in that sense. And it also taught individual companies like how to ensure that you don't have too much fats in your company, how to ensure that you are productive, and that every of the processes get automated as much as possible, especially if you have not done so. You can spend this period of time doing so. Yeah.
And what about for you, Andrew?
Goodwill. This is a term that I've picked out, during and after the pandemic. Just like you guys, I'm sure you have been inspired by a lot of people that have stepped forward to help, corporations or individuals. And why goodwill for me stands out from the company or employer side. We have, surely read about case studies of good employers, even though they let people go. They offer, recommendation. They offer referrals to other companies that are hiring based on their personal network, and they give them, like, okay, you are leaving, but you need to search for a job, right? You can keep the company laptop. So I think this goodwill is very important from the company side, but also from the individual side. In an increasingly tough job market, everyone is head to head. Everyone's busy upskilling. We know that. Yeah. Everyone's taking coding classes and boot camps. So how do you then stand out? I think if you display that during the crisis, you not only take care of yourself, but you have actually had the ability to take care of other people also. Just any small group, right? I think this goodwill will make you stand up.
And I think the next question touches on a big portion of the workforce, which is coming into a very difficult time, which is graduates or millennials or students or people without a lot of experience. So how do you balance their needs? They have very unique needs. I think we're of a different generation to the current millennials. We'll see. But they have more demands, less work, less proven work, because again, they don't have the experience. But how do you balance that? Do you have millennials in your team at the moment?
Yes, for me.
Yeah.
Gordon, you start us off.
So this is a very interesting question by Benjamin. I think it's a common question that a lot of people have been asking. I think we shouldn't be branding them. Shouldn't be branding anyone as like millennials, Gen Z, and so on. I think different generation requires differently because of the way that they are being brought up. Also, it really depends on which country they are from. We do have very young teammates who are very, very hungry. Yeah, and we also do have senior teammates who feel that they are at their stage of their life. They just want to keep learning. They don't need to be as hungry. They're pretty okay with what they have. They just want to do their best to help solve as many problems as possible. Yeah, so it really depends on the individual. But I'll say that based on the feedback from the industry, it really seems that the industry feel that millennials actually demand a lot more in terms of like benefits from the companies and so on. But I think it really boils down to how they feel about the work, like what Andrew has touched on, like whether they feel that it's something that they really, really feel a sense of achievement, helping, like adding value to society. I think pay is important. You just need to ensure that you pay at least average or above average. You don't have to pay like top-notch 1%. If you can pay like a bit above average, I think your teammates will be more than happy to stay with you. What they need is challenge. If your teammates don't feel the challenge, they don't feel that, there's a very clear career roadmap for me, especially for a small team, you are not sure where the company is heading towards to, then that will, of course, create a lot of issues. But if they are very clear that, okay, as the company grows, this is the role that I'm going to go into, I'm going to learn a lot more from this company. If really this is not the right company for me, then it's okay. It's okay to let them go, because everybody at their different stage of life, they need different things. And I don't think you can keep talents forever. So, yeah.
Great, thanks for sharing that. And Andrew, did you want to add to that as well?
Yeah, just a quick one. I'll echo Gordon. And monthly, we actually did a survey with our users. A lot of our user base fall under the millennial category. And this millennials, and if I can lump Gen Z inside there also, they belong to the woke generation, right? So when we translate that into seeking a desirable company, what makes a company attractive for them? It boils down to purpose driven. So there has to be a purpose and there has to be alignment with the individual. And they are also very aspirational. So lifelong employment is a thing of the past. So this younger generation, they are looking for ways to grow, develop, like I mentioned earlier, and how they can achieve their goals. So progression, like Gordon mentioned, guidance, mentorship, and at the end of the day, how it translates into their own aspirations. That is very important for millennials. But to support the millennials, right? They may have less proven work, but they're definitely a way savvier generation. Information now is democratic. It's widely and freely accessible. And I think one very strong value that millennials provide is the savviness. So I think that stands them in good state also.
Perfect. Well, just conscious of time, we've got 1 minute left. So I just wanted to wrap up and to say a big thank you to both you and Gordon, Andrew, for sharing with us your wisdom. And for the attendees who have joined, I hope that you've learned something, you've been inspired. And if you have further questions, I encourage you to reach out to Andrew and Gordon. They're both very friendly. They'll grab a coffee with you. They're happy to have a Zoom call with you to learn out more about what they're doing, their customers, the trends that they're seeing. Because they are truly experts in their field. And so if you are in HR and you are looking to digitize your own HR or to the way that you recruit or you find your staff, the best way to do it is to actually talk to someone that's done it or is working with many different people that are doing it, because you can learn the best practices, you can learn from other people's mistakes. And we need to be doing that in a time of COVID where you need to be savvy, you need to be doing those best practices. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone and wish everyone a good evening. And thank you for joining us on this webinar.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.